Episode 2 of the second season of Dr. Stone is about a power struggle. In it, Senku and the villagers of Ishigami Village prepare for their first tactical operation of the Stone War. With cell phones now ready for tactical use, Gen, Magma, and Chrome are tasked with carrying out a special ops mission. They must deliver this technology to the spies that Senku planted in Tsukasa's kingdom, his old friends Taiju and Yuzuriha. The only obstacle standing in their way is a girl named Homura. As a scout planted by Tsukasa, Homura's purpose is to keep tabs on the villagers and to alert Tsukasa if something troubling is afoot. She is perfect for this job as she used to be an elite gymnast in the old world. Because of this, she presents a unique challenge to the members of the Kingdom of Science. She possesses a high degree of mobility, athleticism, and speed that rival those of our favorite lioness, Kohaku. But she also possesses an acute intellect and astute deductive reasoning capacities. She puts these qualities on full display as she repeatedly predicts and thwarts the efforts of Senku and the villagers to capture her, outspeeding Kohaku and absolutely manhandling Senku when he tries to physically pin her down. Over time, she even figures out that Chrome, Magma, and Gen are part of an advance party, and she swiftly chases after them in an effort to foil their Spec Ops mission. Despite her efforts, Homura is eventually captured by Senku and the villagers, who exploit their information advantage and communications technology to lure her into a trap. Through the use of skillful artifice and deception, Gen, Chrome, and Magma lure her into a trap. They set up a decoy cell phone tower on the top of a tree, showing how good lies tend to have a little bit of truth behind them. They later fell that tree when she attempts to climb it to tear down this tower after she rightly deduces that her enemies possess communications infrastructure but wrongly assumes that they have set it up in front of her. And this is where this episode gets really interesting. Rather than allowing her to fall to her death, Senku orders Kohaku to capture Homura non-violently to save her life by catching her in midair. Orders is perhaps a bit of a misnomer, as this action was prefaced by a tension-filled conversation between Senku and Kohaku about war and murder after Homura's escape. Because she understood the threat Homura's capture of Chrome, Magma, and Gen would pose to the survival of her friends and allies, Kohaku proposes to murder Homura if need be. After questioning her readiness to take a human life, Senku doubles down on a non-violent approach to conflict. He reassures her that the Kingdom of Science will do everything in its power to prevent a situation demanding violent action from arising. This is the first major challenge of the grand strategy of bloodless conflict arrived at by Senku, Chrome, and Gen in the previous episode. What happens next? To win a war without a single drop of blood being spilt, some might say that's a foolish idea, a childish pipe dream dreamt up in the minds of artists and academics. The sort of thing that is cute in theory, but that holds little to no water in practice. In fact, some say that such a policy could be brutally disastrous in terms of the potential cost to human life it could incur were it to be pursued as the basis for an actual wartime foreign policy agenda. And yet there's something beautifully idealistic about this idea. War is a scourge. Most of us agree that it's a blight on the human soul. Some of us consider it an unfortunate inevitability, a tragic but inescapable consequence of the way that politics is basically set up at the international level as a Hobbesian state of nature. There is no Leviathan at the global level, no world government, and as such, we're reduced to a state of vastly different interests competing with each other over imaginary lines, natural resources, collective grievances, and conflicting ideological projects. As such, some theorists contend that we are condemned to always have to reckon with the possibility of war. It is a part of human nature, they say. Others say that we must wage war to end wars, a kind of foolishly hypocritical statement that is often made precisely by those who have never had to fight in a war, who have never had to experience the visceral fear of death at the hands of the enemy or come face to face with the decision that almost no one wants to make. The decision to take a human life, to snuff out the last breath of another living, breathing person. Whether the means by which we do it is gunfire and a bullet to the head, chemical warfare, a well-placed knife stab through the heart, or a brutal chokehold, the result is the same. A life is taken and we are left to bear the stain of that life on our conscience. Killing is often regrettably unavoidable in the context of an actual conflict. It's kill or be killed, murder or be murdered. But to say that such things are desirable or an intrinsic part of human nature is another thing entirely. Dr. Stone spits in the face of this idea, or at least attempts to do so. It dares ask the question, what if we could fully put to use our tireless ingenuity, our bravery and compassion, our curiosity and intelligence? In short, what if we could bring together the nobler aspects of our personalities with science and the scientific method? Might we not be able to move beyond producing a technologically advanced society used for the purposes of war? Might we be able to apply the weapons of science in a radically different way than we have so far in the real world? To use them not to cause harm or exploit nature, but to do the impossible. To win a war without spilling a single drop of blood. Is that even possible? I found this idea so interesting, just like I found the way it's played out in this episode deeply fascinating. Not only through Homura and the conflict that emerges between her and the villagers during the first half of the episode, but also through the conflict that emerges within the advance party the minute that they stumble upon the petrified bodies that Tsukasa has marked and is ready to resurrect to be full members of his army. At their encounter, Magma suggests committing the brutish act of dismembering the petrified statues in their current state. He rightly points out that enacting such acts of cruelty would likely be advantageous for the Kingdom of Science as a part of their war efforts. They could cripple their enemies and disable the short-term ability of Tsukasa to add to his ranks, all without having to actually murder anyone involved. For our second, our local con artist Gen agrees, and although we as the audience are led to believe that this would be the strategic and rational course of action, at the last minute, Gen intervenes. As Magma moves swiftly to crush someone that Gen knew in his previous life, Gen delivers the following set of lines. These lines have stuck with me since I watched this episode because yeah, wanting to wage and win a war without wanting to spill a single drop of blood is naively idealistic. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a simplistic and poorly thought out idea. One can understand the nuances of the human condition, the way that social structures often push us to harm one another in order to survive. And one can still try one's best to reject that, to try to do better, to try to marshal the weapons of science and the power of the human animal creatively and efficiently in order to solve one of the biggest problems that has faced our species pretty much since the first time we picked up a stick and started to fight each other over a piece of meat or a woman. This is a joke, please don't cancel me.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Maybe we'll fail this time, and maybe we'll fail next time. Hell, maybe we'll fail 99.9% of the time, but if there's a chance for us to succeed, if there's a chance for us to win a conflict without any bloodshed, or even with as little bloodshed as possible, not in theory but in an actual concrete situation, then why the hell shouldn't we try to do everything in our power to secure that outcome? Call me a fool, call Dr. Stone foolish, maybe this is the type of thing that can only be accomplished in a fictional TV show, in a Japanese cartoon. Maybe even in Dr. Stone, the idea of a war without bloodshed isn't realistic. But it's an ideal worth striving for, and to say otherwise is to reject our humanity at a certain level and to embrace conceptual barbarism.